Hello and welcome to this edition of the Rebels247 Round Table. I'm David Johnson along with Webb Lewis and Brandon Red. We want to begin today's program speaking a little bit about Ole Miss offensive lineman Park Stevens, who passed away in a tragic automobile accident on Wednesday. Certainly our thoughts and prayers go out to Park's family as a lot of condolences as poured out of the Ole Miss football program to his family. He's someone that was a dear part of the program and certainly someone that will be dearly missed.
Absolutely. Anytime something like this happens is such a tragedy. Some of the things you see out of it, though, is the outpouring of condolences and sympathy and heartfelt prayers coming not only from the Rebel Nation, but from the Vol Nation and from Arkansas and from Florida and even Mississippi State.
Such a hard time, not only for Park, but for the team in general and the teammates. And, prayers go out to everybody, the Park family and then Ole Miss family. And like Webb said, it really has been a lot of teams, Arkansas fans, Tennessee fans, fans from all around the country really showing their love to the Ole Miss family.
Park Stevens was 20 years old, graduate of New Hope High School, also played a season of football at East Central Mississippi Community College before going through spring practice with the Rebels this past spring. And guys, I remember just watching the Rebels practice. Park, certainly a young man that stood out, not only from a personality standpoint, but from a physical standpoint. 6'6", 350 pounds, and that long flowing blonde hair that he had.
Yeah, it was always easy to spot Park on the football field, like you said, Dave, with the long blonde hair. He always seemed to work really hard during practice, and his teammates were always around him, patting him on the back or telling him he was doing a good job. And he seemed to really have a great connection with his teammates, and everybody really seemed to love him.
Services set for Park Stevens for Saturday. Visitation begins at 11 a.m. at Mount Vernon Church in Columbus, Mississippi, with funeral services scheduled to begin at 1:30 p.m. Park Stevens was 20 years old. Turning our attention now to the world of recruiting, the Ole Miss Rebels get a commitment that will count towards their 2013 signing class this morning in defensive tackle and defensive end, Fadal Brown out of Charleston, South Carolina. Fadal, of course, played his true freshman season at Florida International University before briefly transferring to Itawamba Community College in Fulton, Mississippi, where he never played a down of football, stayed in Fulton for about 3 weeks before Florida International finally granted him a release to allow him to sign with a 4-year university. Of course, Fadal Brown will have to set out the 2013 football season due to NCAA transfer rules. However, he will join the program and be enrolled at Ole Miss in time for the fall semester.
The Rebels got a good one in Brown. He's a high motor type guy. He knows how to get off the football quickly. And I think, he'll help not only in the run game, but I think he'll really help against the pass. He seems to really know how to get to the quarterback. He can blitz the edge, and he can go inside and really make guards miss down low.
The depth being put on this defensive line for Hugh Freeze and staff for the 2013, 2014, and so on seasons is really something that needs to be talked about. Will there be a time where you've got a winded defensive tackle in the game for Ole Miss's defense? I don't see it. We're talking 2-3 deep at every position.
I mean, how important is that, David? Just to have a defensive line that can go all quarters for 4 quarters, not get tired, and even if you have to go to overtime, be able to play hard-nosed football.
Yeah, particularly at that defensive tackle and defensive end positions where you're having to apply pressure to the quarterback. You see a lot of successful programs that will go 6, 7, 8 men deep into their D-line rotation right there. And Ole Miss certainly getting to a point where they will be able to do that. Now, Fadal Brown won't be of any help this 2013 season, but in 2014, Fadal Brown will be on the field. And the thing is, Fadal Brown comes out of Burke High School in Charleston, South Carolina as a 2-star recruit. Now, a lot of programs laid off Fadal Brown because he was a guy that had to go a semester to prep school to get qualified in order to go to college. And he did at North Carolina Tech. Ends up at Florida International, and in his freshman season there, just absolutely dominates. There's a coaching change at Florida International where Mario Cristobal is fired. From the get-go, Brown made it known he was uncomfortable that he was at FIU and there was a new coaching staff coming in. However, he gave it an opportunity. He went through spring practice with Florida International this year. In the spring game, 4 quarterback sacks and a fumble recovery. That film starts circulating, and a guy that just a few years ago was a 2-star recruit coming out of high school, all of a sudden everybody in the country wants. Talking to Fadal this morning, he had offers from LSU, Tennessee, Miami, Arkansas, Mississippi State. The list goes on and on and on. This guy is a highly coveted defensive lineman, and Hugh Freeze and his Ole Miss coaching staff, this is a big-time haul for them.
You know, oftentimes you hear about teams getting a steal down the road, whether it be through transfers, JUCO, whatever way it has. Well, Ole Miss got a steal today, guys. And Brown, he's going to be a guy that I think Rebel fans will see a lot of. And like you mentioned, David, he's a player that's on the rise. He's a player that people will get to know well, and I expect to see a lot of good things out of him.
Fadal Brown announces for the Rebels this morning at a press conference at his high school in Charleston, South Carolina. And I guess it's after the fact, so we can say this. We've known for almost 2 weeks now that Fadal Brown was going to commit to Ole Miss, originally set to do it a week ago today. However, he put the stops on it because he wanted his mother to be there, and she was out of town at the time. And I think that speaks volumes about the character of Fadal Brown right there. He said his mom has always been there for him throughout his football career, and he wasn't about to announce this major decision without her being by his side.
I think one of the things that I really like about the Brown pickup is he adds to that depth. He adds not only, you're going to get fresh body in there at defensive line. It's the different types of defensive linemen that Ole Miss is putting together on the depth chart, the different types of D tackles. And man, that's going to be, as an offensive lineman, making that adjustment from Isaac Gross to Levon Hooks to Fadal Brown, that's going to be next to impossible.
Yeah, and Brown, a guy that's very versatile on the defensive line. Yes, Ole Miss is going to line him up on the edge and let him go get the quarterback, but on third down situations, don't be surprised to see the Rebels sneak him into the inside, put his hand in the dirt, and give them a lightning quick defensive tackle to apply pressure to the quarterback in those particular situations. He can play inside, he can play out. It was a great pickup all the way around.
And it's like you hinted to, Webb. Last season we saw a lot of Gilbert Pena, Isaac Gross together. One guy that can clog up the holes, the other guy with the high motor that can shoot the gaps. This is what Ole Miss defensive line is doing.
Well, and for if you want to look at it from an offensive lineman standpoint, you break that huddle and you come up there on one play and you've got a big space eater right there that you've got to block. And then on the next play, you got a lightning bolt lined up at you across the line of scrimmage. It makes you think, and you have to adjust your game as an offensive lineman. So Ole Miss able to throw a lot of change-ups in there on that defensive line.
You really, like you said, you really never know what's coming, because one time you're getting pounded by a guy like Gilbert Pena that was, 330 pounds. And the next time you're trying to guard somebody like Brown, like Isaac Gross, that's going to come and hit you in the mouth, but he's gone.
And that changes your approach as an offensive lineman. How are you going to defend the gap? What foot are you stepping with first? What angle of attack are you going to take? And it puts the extra burden of having that offensive lineman have to think about what his next move is going to be when he's not playing a cookie cutter on the opposite side of the football.
Absolutely. And I think it affects play calling as well from an offensive standpoint. Okay, what package do they have in on this play? This play's not going to work. So, it's just it creates a lot of havoc for the opposing team offense by having that mix-up on the defensive line.
Okay, Fadal Brown, an Ole Miss Rebel, will be enrolled in time for the fall semester. Won't see him on the field this fall, but he's coming in 2014. Okay, let's turn our attention now. Another big announcement coming up next week. Callaway High School 2014 guard Rod Taylor is going to announce to the world his college decision next week. Been thought for a long time. It's between Ole Miss and Alabama. The closer we get to time, which will be Wednesday afternoon at 1:30 at Callaway High School, seems to be apparent that Rod Taylor is headed to Ole Miss.
Yeah, Rod at the opening, he named Ole Miss as leader with Alabama just a little bit behind. What a huge pickup this would be if Ole Miss could get Rod Taylor. We're talking about the number 2 guard in the country by 247 Sports. This guy, he can do a little bit of everything, David. Me and you watched him at the elite camp at Ole Miss. I mean, he's quick off the ball. He's athletic. He can guard big guys, slow guys, fast guys. It doesn't matter. He's all over the place.
Yeah, he is a guy who has left tackle feet that will play on the interior of the offensive line as a guard, and who knows? I mean, maybe even could possibly be a potential center, but definitely a guard. And but he has those left tackle feet, yet he's got enough strength and bruteness about him that he can also block the run game on the inside, and would just be an absolutely outstanding pickup. And Webb, when you think about it, if Rod Taylor picks Ole Miss on Wednesday, there's only one of the Callaway four still left out there that's undecided, and that is defensive lineman Breland Speaks. Ole Miss already with commits from wide receiver Dale Harris, defensive back Ronald Walker, and perhaps offensive lineman Rod Taylor next week. Webb, your thoughts on Breland Speaks?
Well, I think with Speaks, it's just a matter of time before he pulls the trigger for Ole Miss. And again, of the four, Speaks is one of my favorites. He really is, because of how athletic he is. Again, at the defensive line position, stacking that defensive line. Now, I think one of the biggest things that people need to recognize, especially that needs to have some attention brought to it, is Fadal Brown told you earlier, David, that he chose Ole Miss over LSU. LSU seemed to be that number 2. And now you're looking at Rod Taylor. And the very next week, Ole Miss in battle with Alabama. And it looks like, and if you look at the crystal ball selection from the three of us, Ole Miss will beat Alabama in the next week.
Yeah, Ole Miss is going against, what do people call them, the big boys of the SEC, and Ole Miss isn't backing down. And you know what, guys? They're winning a lot of these battles. If you're an Ole Miss fan, you have to be excited to know that your football team is going against and beating the top programs in the country.
Certainly Ole Miss dominating the landscape inside the state of Mississippi for this 2014 class. And if you get the additions of Rod Taylor and Breland Speaks, that is just an exclamation mark on the job that this staff has done within the borders of the Magnolia State for this 2014 recruiting cycle.
And, going back to the Callaway players, as we talked about last week, they call themselves the Fab Four. Ronald Walker, one of the most underrated players in the country, and I truly believe that. He showed out in the opening. He's a great player, and it's a huge pickup for Ole Miss to have him already committed.
I think it's a matter of time before Ronald gets his 4th star. He's right there underneath it. I think his showing at the opening with all eyes on him, I think he'll have that 4 star before too long. Dayall's already got it. Taylor's got it. Speaks is a 4 star. Is that correct? Is he a 3?
I can't.
So right there, and that's what's great about this Callaway Fab Four. A lot of times you see strategic offers across the nation. I'm going to offer this guy and hope that because of that I get his teammate. That's not the case with these Callaway guys. These guys are all great players in their own right.
All right, moving from the opening to the Southern Elite Combine, which is set for Oxford, Mississippi on Wednesday, July 10th, right around the corner. Certainly a big day for us, as some of the top prospects in the South will engage in some great competition here in Oxford, Mississippi. A new pickup, 4-star wide receiver Cameron Sims out of Ouachita Parish High School in Monroe, Louisiana, will be at the Southern Elite Combine. And that really helps set up some great 1-on-1, 7-on-7 matches when you're talking about Oklahoma cornerback commit. Tito Wyndham will be here. Also, Mississippi State cornerback commit Lashard Dewar will be here. There's going to be some fantastic action at the Southern Elite Combine.
Oh, it really is. And you're excited for the competition. If you're a player, if you're Cameron Sims coming in, you're coming in with one thing in mind. I'm coming to dominate. That's what I'm doing. I know what I'm capable of. I'm about to go to this thing and dominate. Now, I look at Artez Williams,
right,
under the radar cornerback. He has an opportunity to come in and go against some of the top players in the country in Cameron Sims and try to shut him down. If he does that, people are going to notice that.
Yeah, this is what I call a combine that is full of opportunities. Like you said with Artez Webb, if he can come in there and beat the Cameron Sims, then you know what? Wow, everybody has their attention on him. If Cameron Sims comes out here and completely dominates, as in a sense we kind of expect him to be incredible out there, then that only proves what we've been saying all along. He is a top 5, top 10 wide receiver.
Certainly a place that a recruit can come in and make a name for himself. I remember back to last year, not many people knew the name of C.J. Hampton. And C.J. had already committed to Ole Miss. Give Hugh Freeze and his staff credit. They knew about him, but the rest of the world really didn't. And then, boom, CJ blows up. CJ, one of the top performers at the Southern Elite last season. Jalen Hurd, the Tennessee commit, running back. He was the Combine King last year. And who's going to win it this year?
All right. Yeah, let's
Who's going to win it?
Who's going to win it this year? You got Cameron Sims coming in. He would be, in my opinion, the obvious front runner for it, considering what he's capable of. But then you named some pretty talented cornerbacks as well. There's going to be a really good quarterback from Macomb here in Alex Woodall. I don't know. Honestly, I think that if a certain player from Lafayette High School shows up like he did last year, then it stays right here in Oxford, Mississippi, and D.K. Buford.
Yeah, D.K. Buford could very well win the Combine King Award, which is given to the most outstanding performer. And it was a difficult choice last year looking back. Jalen Hurd, one of the top prospects in the 2014 class, as we mentioned, will be a Tennessee Volunteer. D.K. Buford, C.J. Hampton, Parker Adamson, Devin Voorhees. The list goes on and on and on. Trey Bledsoe, really and truly, got to say, Bledsoe kind of discovered at the Southern Elite Combine last year out of Grenada, Mississippi, and he ends up being a part of Ole Miss's 2013 class.
Guys, you know what I'm excited about is when this starts Wednesday, who are going to be those guys we didn't know about that show up. And you never know. Ole Miss, LSU, Alabama, they could be just right around the corner about to offer some of these guys.
Well, and when you look at the pre-registrations, a whole lot of 2015s and 2016s, and this is what these kind of combines are for. Yeah, the whole world knows about Cameron Sims. They know what kind of talent he is, and it's going to be awesome seeing him compete here. But you really look hard for those kids in that 2016 class, 2017 class even, that could come in and really put themselves on the radar.
Again, staying in Oxford, Mississippi, there's a 2016 quarterback that just won an MVP award at a 7-on-7 competition, Jack Abraham. You've got a couple 2016s with offers already. The younger guys are outstanding, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And again, my under-the-radar guy is going to be Blake Hawkins, Tishomingo County quarterback, 2015. I look for him to shine at this thing.
I'm going with safety Kirk Menzick out of Hoggard High School in Charlotte, North Carolina. 6'2", 205-pounder. He's a 2014. Folks, he's got one offer, and it's from 1AA Gardner Webb. And how he's been missed, I do not know after watching his film. He's got all the physical tools. He is a vicious hitter and a very intelligent young man. He'll be here Wednesday. We'll get to watch him firsthand. Also, a little running back out of Fayette County, Georgia, Jaleese Myrick. Reminds me a lot of Dexter McCluster. It's going to be fun to watch him too.
Guys, I'm going chalk on this one, and we've already mentioned him. I'm going D.K. Buford, and for multiple reasons, though. Because not only because of his speed, Ole Miss knows they have a great
now we were talking about sleepers now. D.K. Buford is not a sleeper.
No.
Well,
Buford's going to win this thing, I think. His 40 time alone. Last year he came out there fresh off of, there was, not a lot of people saw it. He had ran a 4.22 at a combine earlier that summer, backed it up with a 4.27 at the Southern Elite Combine last year.
Yeah, and he has that ability to make everybody miss in the open field.
And the trench warfare will be fierce. We're excited. We've got an unbelievable crop of offensive linemen coming in, defensive linemen, and watch those guys go one-on-one in pass pro. That's one of the highlights of the camp.
Yeah, that's where you can sometimes distinguish the men from the boys out there. And there's going to be a lot of fun hitting going on, and you can really see what's happening down there.
That's what's fun, and I don't think people realize because a lot of the focus is on 7-on-7, quarterback, wide receiver, running back, skill position things, while the linemen are over on the other field beating the dog out of each other. I mean, they don't have pads on, but, man, you don't need pads to block. And, man, it's going to be a lot of competition going on with a great crew of offensive and defensive linemen that have already pre-registered for this thing.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this week's Rebels247 Round Table. For Brandon Redd, Webb Lewis, I'm David Johnson. Thank you for listening.